right, it is that time once again. The preview series for the upcoming 2024 college football season continues with the Mountain West. Obviously, this is Hit the Books, part of the Hammer Betting Network, alongside the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, producer extraordinaire Zach Phillips. I am merely Brad Powers. Before we talk the upcoming season as far as the Mountain West goes, and the team that we're really high on, but the market now has finally reacted to, before we get into that team and more, let me remind everybody, if in case you haven't seen any of the conference previews, we got some exciting news here at Hit the Books. We have a new sponsor. You might have heard of them. They're called FanDuel. Obviously, one of the nation's leaders as far as sports books. It's one of the industry leaders, to say the least. We're very excited to have FanDuel as a partner. Obviously, it's one of the best products and prices out there, particularly for college football. Lots of college football offerings, including some stuff that we requested, and kudos for FanDuel. They posted them. Great live menu, oftentimes first to market, not only in the offseason, but during the season. Lots of different fun type of bets, easy to use, easy to pay out. So we like, and we're very excited that FanDuel has sponsored us. But before we get to the college football season, obviously there's other sports going on right now. And even though we're still a few weeks away from college football kicking off, Major League Baseball is the thing that's getting us through the dog days of summer. And right now, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day for the rest of summer. You can take your booster bonus and bet on anything Major League Baseball related, whether it's home runs, strikeouts, or even the final score. Plus, with FanDuel, you can combine your bets in a live same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. So head on over to FanDuel.com and start racking up some runs in the sun. Disclaimer, you must be 21 plus, 18 plus DC and present in select states. Option required. Wager requirements apply. Bonuses awarded at not with the tradable bonus bets or profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including bonus expiration. See terms and conditions at FanDuel.com/sportsbooks. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg/help.com in Colorado, DC, Illinois, Iowa, Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Vermont, Virginia, and Wyoming. Call 1-800-NEXTSTEP or text NEXTSTEP to 53342 in Arizona. 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. 1-800-9-WITH-IT in Indiana or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland or visit 1-800-GAMBLER.net in West Virginia. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE/New York or text HOPE New York in New York. Knish, what's happening, man?
Hey, listen, you know what? Mountain West, clean, crisp air. This is the conference, baby. This is what I love to talk about. I love this G5 conference. I tell you, other than the near and dear MAC that we both have blood ties and heartstrings to. This might be my second favorite G5 conference here. And excited to get into it. Obviously, we got one chalky favorite at the top, but I think a little bit. Some teams that could be frisky in this one, and part of the way here. So excited. This is always a favorite of mine to talk about.
And also some coaching news, to say the least, in this conference. Lots of turnover, lots of recent turnover that we'll get to. I'm going to echo those sentiments. So, Mac's always near and dear to my heart. But now that I've been out here a decade and for several years was a UNLV season ticket holder, this conference is now near and dear to my heart. I love the Mountain West. And if you follow Mountain West football for the last 2 decades, there is a program, at least the last decade plus, that's dominated the conference. They might not be as good as what they were 15 years ago, but they're still the class of this conference. And to no surprise, at the top of my power ratings, we start the teams top to bottom as far as my preseason power ratings go. We're going to start it off with Boise State, who I think obviously won. Not that I think they won the conference last year, but I think should make it back-to-back. And I think this is a Boise State team that might not be as good as what they were under Chris Peterson, but this might be their best team since the Chris Peterson, Kellen Moore days. Lots of returning experience, something that's not always the case with G5 football anymore. 15 returning starters. I know they have a new coach, but he was the interim last year. I like what he did as far as filling out his coaching staff. Obviously, you got a guy that's very familiar with the program, and Dirk Cutter calling the plays once again. He called them a couple of years ago, saved the season for them when he took over the play calling. Now he's going to be the OC at least for one more year. They got 2 co-defensive coordinators that I think are pretty good, including Tyler Stockton from a very underrated Ball State team. And then you start looking at personnel. Are you kidding me? Ashton Genty, a running back, is arguably the best group of 5 football player, regardless of position in the country. And then maybe possibly you got a 5-star starting a quarterback in Malachi Nelson. You might have a 5-star kid as long as his head's on straight and Marshall at wide receiver. You got some other talented options at wide receiver and tight end, relatively inexperienced offensive line. Defense, 9 returning starters from probably going to be, I know it's a defense that took a step back, but again, I like the coaching hires and I like the returning production there. Maybe the best, probably the best defense in the Mountain West. I guess what I'm getting at is, well, there's a reason why everybody was betting over 8.5 win total. There is, people like myself, when I say we, I mean me and others, to win the Mountain West Conference. If you follow along with the weekly show and hit the books, we gave it out. They're now a minus money favorite versus the field in the conference. I even bet Boise State to make the playoff. This is a team that I have as much pro positions on Boise State as any team in the country.
You know what? And as you said, I mean, you laid out the case there about why they should be the favorite, the deserved favorite, obviously the best roster in this conference. To play devil's advocate here.
Oh, here we go.
I think the biggest question mark you've got here is what do you got in Malachi Nelson? Because it's a USC program that seemed to go. Miller Moss, and they seem comfortable with Miller Moss, and I don't know if they were really devastated to lose it. Also, a guy who is, we'll call it, very slight build, a thinner guy.
Yeah.
Could he, if he's going to be running around, he's a mobile guy, the dual threat quarterback, take a few hits. What do they have behind him in terms of?
I like the Madsen kid. I think they're okay there.
Yep. So that would be my biggest, is Malachi Nelson the guy who he was built up to be as a recruit? Can he be, an elite player at the G5 level? Again, I'm just throwing it out there. They should be the favorite. Over 8.5 was obviously a huge move in the market. That would be my biggest question. Is I think they'll be okay on defense, skill talent for days on offense, and the offensive line it'll be fine. Will Malachi Nelson be what he was built up to be as a recruit? Because if not, then I think the ceiling for this team is more just a Mountain West ceiling than a playoff ceiling.
Say he doesn't work out, I think they can win games. Again, maybe they don't make the playoffs, but I think they can win enough games and still win the conference with the Madsen kid at quarterback. But remember, he was splitting reps, and in some cases, they kind of preferred him over Taylor Green last year. So I think they'll be okay, provided he's healthy. He's been banged up a little bit, but I hear you on that. I guess what I'm getting at is a lot of pro early positions. Everybody, they don't care about what we have in pocket. What do we do now with this team? I think that's where I agree with you. All this optimism that we have for Boise State, all that and then some is priced in the market. I'm not running the window to bet over 9.5 wins. I'm not running the window to lay it versus the rest of the Mountain West right now. I need a plus sign as far as the conference futures there. And I'm at the playoff market, again, for what you said. Obviously shop around, but I'm not wild about it seems like this train is getting full as far as everyone jumping on the bandwagon.
That's a good way to put it.
Let's talk second best team. And I'm going to flip-flop as far as my ratings here because there's been some recent news in recent weeks. I think it's second best team, at least on paper right now, and I'm stunned to say this considering I've been in town for the last decade. UNLV is the second best team, in my opinion, in the Mountain West as we stand right now. I'm recording this in early August. Obviously, a great first year for Barry Odom. Exceeded all expectations. UNLV had their best season in any season in 40 years, and it was legitimate. I know they ran out of gas a little bit at the end against San Jose State, Boise State, and in the bowl game, but they exceeded expectations. You kind of you didn't see 9 wins coming, but you like the coaching staff, the coaching hire. You like them firing. I like them firing Marcus Arroyo. To me, it said, hey, we're getting serious about trying to win some games here. We have the Fertitta complex. That's one of the best training facilities in the Mountain West. We're located in Las Vegas. We got 30-some high schools here. We should be able to recruit. They fired a coach that a lot of people thought, oh, why'd you fire me? He won more games in each season than he had. I liked it. And obviously they made a good hire. They got some ROI immediately with Barry Odom. This year's team, I think, is better, even though they lost the quarterback, Jaden Mayava. to USC. I thought he was I know he's the freshman of the year, but he still played like a freshman at times and was inconsistent. They bring in somebody knows what they're doing, and it's probably Marion, the OC, who I really love. Brought in two of my favorite FCS quarterbacks, the kid from Campbell, and obviously you got Sluka from Holy Cross coming in. So I don't think there's a downgrade at quarterback no matter who starts there. They got some wide receiver talent, to say the least. Ricky White would be, a second or third team All Big Ten receiver if he stayed at Michigan State. He's probably one of the nation's best group of 5 wide receivers. I think the defense will be better this year. They brought in a lot of Power 5 transfers on that side of the ball. There's a lot of excitement here. I will say that the thing that's preventing me from being pro UNLV big time this year, schedule's one of the more difficult schedules UNLV's ever faced. Not that these games are unwinnable, but they're just, they could get beat up a little bit because they're very competitively priced. At Houston, at Kansas, Fresno State, Syracuse, and that's all, by the first week of October. So we'll see if they, can live up to some expectations here. I think the future's bright if they can hold on to Barry Odom. I'm not sure that they will, though.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, those FCS, someone was doing some scouting because those FCS quarterbacks, I'm surprised they got both of them to come in there and be part of it, because Saluka did some things under our guy, Bob Chesney, at Holy Cross there, where we in the weeds, but we've mentioned it a few times. They had South Dakota State on the ropes with him at quarterback and Bob Chesney leading the team there. And then Malik Williams, all type of talent from Campbell. So they did a nice job there going shopping in the market. Ricky White, if he can keep his head on straight, one of maybe the best skill guy at wide receiver in the G5. Not a team that should be short on challenge. They also, they brought in some portal guys to shore up some of the defense and Power 5 transfers. So roster-wise, I agree with you. They, as long as they can get some continuity there on offense, especially with, some of the coordinators that I like as well, and Barry Odom being a very good coach, maybe not a great coach, but a very good coach. There's a lot to like going at UNLV, as you said, other than the fact that, they don't really, outside of Utah Tech FCS game, they really don't have what you would call, a lot of layups.
No, there isn't.
Yeah, so it's kind of one of those that week to week, you're gonna have to be up. I think they're gonna run the quarterback a lot. So the fact that they got both of those guys, is a nice element there in case one goes down. So yeah, I think this team, a lot of talent. I don't know if it sets up just one of those years that with Boise so good and with the schedule, it would have been nice for, them to peak in maybe a different type of format, but they got a lot going in the right direction. I don't really have a bet on them per se in terms of where the win total's at right now and where the conference futures odds. Again, program in the right direction, but nothing that I would need a flat 7 there for me to want to go over.
Yeah, I think that's appropriately priced. 7.5 under juice significantly is where I would price this team. I'll be honest with you, if you told me flat 7.5, I'd go under, believe it or not. Even though I'm very pro UNLV this year, I just think the 4 games against Power 5 opponents is something that they're not used to playing with. And I'll tell you another thing they're not used to playing with: preseason expectations. We'll see. There's a lot of last I checked, I know you don't make it out this way too often, Knish, but last I checked, there's some distractions in this town, and now distractions now with expectations. We'll see if they can handle it. But boy, on paper, that you're coming into a season, this has to be the highest I've ever had UNLV power rating, or anybody's had UNLV power rating the last 40 years, at least coming into a season. So there's some excitement there. There was some excitement originally until some recent news. Fresno State would have been probably my second best team in this conference, but Jeff Tedford, not a surprise considering he's had a couple of episodes of health related issues, including missing the bowl game this past year. But he steps down. Their interim is going to be the same interim that they had during the bowl game. Fresno State does return their quarterback, Mikey Keene, who was off and on. Boy, he was really on in the bowl game.
Yep.
There's some pieces to work with here. 14 returning starters, a schedule that's not overly daunting outside of Michigan in the opener. It was a team that I thought I was going to be pretty optimistic on, but that news hit, and you just don't know if guys will hit the portal, what to expect. So right now I'm kind of wait and see mode, but I know when the news broke, I mean, just like any other thing, when you lose a coach, not that you're going to downgrade the team's power rating significantly, but I went ahead and took an under position on Fresno State.
Yeah, you know what? I mean, Jeff Tedford was, just an unbelievable coach for a lot of tenures over at Cal, and then what he's done at Fresno State in his second time around, even just knew how to win ball games there. As you said, Mikey Keene, when he looks right, his offense looked pretty good. When he was off, not so much. They do have, some offensive line talent. So the defense took a step back last year, but bringing a lot back this year. I just don't, in terms of, again, we'll look at it from the same position of, UNLV. Can they really challenge a Boise? I don't think so. I don't think there's enough there. I think the offensive line should be very good, and Mikey Keene, when he's right, should make this offense pretty electric, but it's just a little, it's not enough for me to want to go, especially at the, the prices there where they're only, I think they're $350 or $420 to 1 there to win the conference. That's not enough for me to want to get involved and unseat Boys. Have you done anything with the win total?
Under, again, always shop for the best prices. Again, you don't have to be Elon Musk or Einstein to figure some of this out. I mean, I shopped and bet an under 8 when the Tedford news hit. I did originally bet 4 to 1 to win the conference before the Tedford. This is early in the summer because I thought, there was some, if there was one team that I was confident that could compete with Boise, it'd be them. But I don't like that position now. And I will say this is in the weeds. We don't always want to go deep into the weeds on teams. Otherwise, we'd be talking 3 hours. But they like Corey Foreman, a former 5-star, number 1 overall player in the country. Never panned out at USC. He's playing up to his capabilities with a new scenery. I was just there at Fresno State a couple days ago. That's a pretty stadium. I can tell you that. Pretty surroundings.
Hey, I know. We haven't talked enough about the stadium tour during. I know during these previews we haven't had the weekly show. So yeah, I've seen the BP Stadium tour was live and full go. We'll have to review it on one of the regular shows. But yeah, it's a nice and you know what? I took some random heat on Twitter when I said Fresno was a decent recruit. I know it's a little bit remote in California, but it's typically a program that has a lot
they've
more.
Won, going back to Pat Hill and even, I think, a long time Jim Sweeney. They've consistently been a winner.
Yeah, and just I think they have more of a local talent base than a lot of these teams. So yeah, you know what? I agree. Without the Tedford news, maybe it would be a little bit more bullish. Still think they could be very good. Just don't think they can get over the hump this year. Now
I am hearing people from inside that there's, as far as the future of Fresno State, and not necessarily this season, because I do like the talent, and I think they can maybe, I would be stunned if they didn't at least make a bowl game. The future, I'm hearing there's some money issues. So we'll see if that comes into play as far as who they can hire as the next coach. Boy, on paper, it should be an attractive job. I'm not saying the most attractive G5 job, but a place that if I was an up-and-comer, I would take a Fresno job. Let's talk a couple programs here. One of them with a new coach. A couple of teams that not getting a lot of publicity this offseason, but 2 programs that have won a lot here recently in the Mountain West. We'll start first with Wyoming, the team that is replacing their long-term coach, Craig Bohl. The Sawville guy who was the DC takes over. I think there's not as much turnover with the program. Why would you want a lot of turnover since they're coming off one of their better recent decades in the history of their football program here, what Bohl was able to do. So I don't think they changed much. I do think they'll modernize the offense, maybe play with a little more tempo, but we'll see. I got to see that first before I believe that. They like their new quarterback, the Svoboda. I know I'm chopping that up a little bit, but they like him. They like some of the guys at wide receiver, tight end. Defense should be still fine. It's definitely not a team that's going to win 9 games like they did a year ago, but it's a team that I think will be back in a bowl game here in Wyoming.
Yeah, you know what? As you said, they have an identity as kind of what they want to be. They get people up there, in Wyoming. Usually there's a lot of weather, cold. It's not a great off. They do. I agree with you. I would like to see them somewhat modernize the offense, even though they were able to get results. A lot of times it was a painful watch. Sometimes they're playing some of that old school Wyoming football. But again, that they lean to their strength, and you can, in their recruiting base and where they're at, you can get some defensive guys, you can get some linemen. They were always pretty good in the trenches. That'll kind of be they're able to take advantage of some of the other weaknesses that some of the other schools in this conference have. So, yeah, I mean, Bull did everything you could want at this program. I understand, we wanted the continuity. Defense will be very good again. Just don't see, from a ceiling-wise perspective. This was a team that you would call it the past 3 to 5 years, had some, a conference title, would always have what you would call conference title potential and aspirations. I don't
never
really
got there.
Yeah, never got there. And I would say I would put them a tier below that now, where I don't think it's what I would call realistic in this year one, to, especially with how good we think a couple of those top tier teams can be, for them to get there.
Yeah, even though I think they're a bowl team, I'm not running the window to bet a conference future. I just, the UNLV's A game's better than them. Obviously, Fresno State, as long as they can handle the coaching turnover, their A game's better. Boise State, obviously, significantly better. So, yeah, I didn't bet a Wyoming future in that regard. Air Force is a team that I think I know I bet with a lot of people, but I think I sent this one to you. I like this Air Force team. A very quiet offseason for Air Force. A lot of people down on Air Force. I get it. They have nobody coming back. 7 returning starters, but and I downgraded them significantly, a touchdown in my power ratings. But with that being said, this is still Air Force. This is still, last I checked, Troy Calhoun's still there. They still got a lot of continuity at the coaching staff. It's still the same system that they run year in and year out. I think it's a team that's being overlooked a little bit. People are forgetting about. Certainly not as good as what they were last year, but Air Force is a team that I think is back in a bowl game this year. Early season market did not have them priced in a bowl game. In fact, it was 5.5. So over there, and this is how much I like it. If I had to bet it now at 6.5, I'd still go over 6.5 wins. And I don't think I'm alone. You look at some of the other books out there that they're hanging 7. FanDuel 6.5 yet. So I still would make a bet. We'll see what we got at the end of this show, but my numbers have this one at 7.
Yeah, I mean, this is one where a lot of the, when you go into the returning production numbers and what teams lose in that, you always got to be a little leery of the academies, because it's not like you're pumping in a bunch of new freshmen here or transfer portal guys here. It's guys that have been in the program for multiple years. So I don't think, even though they've lost a lot off of last year's team, that usually doesn't hit. And it's kind of one of those things you don't really know about a lot of these guys until the season starts going, because they didn't have big recruiting profiles. There weren't guys on the radar. It's not a lot of information coming from the program. So we'll see. But again, it's kind of one of those, they are the staple of consistency, with a type of system that as you almost talked about with Wyoming there, Wyoming giving Air Force trouble, perennially over the years, a type of system that gives a lot of the other teams in the conference, the not Wyoming teams, that don't have, the personnel to line up and defend this system, a lot of issues year over year in the Mountain West. So I wouldn't have a bullish position on where the number's at now. And it's a team that I think had a higher ceiling. Again, we just talked about Wyoming have a higher ceiling. Same with Air Force, kind of a team that was challenging for the conference title in some years. Don't see that this year. But again, I'm not running to bet under on a team that's been perennially over for a while, just because of some returning production numbers.
If we don't have a bet there, maybe we have a bet on this next team. In fact, I know we do. It's Colorado State.
Yeah.
The next team in my power ratings. A critical year 3 for Norvell, who's off back-to-back losing seasons. Better not have a third straight losing season, although I think it's very possible. Colorado State, at times when you look at the skill position talent last year, I think everyone remember the Colorado game. I think 10 million people watched it on a Friday night. But you saw some bits and pieces. You saw the potential, but haven't been able to put it together. I'm not sure Norvell's that great of a coach from what I've seen. I expected them to, considering he took Nevada's team with them, I know they expected him to kind of hit the ground running. It just hasn't happened. He stacked together some solid recruiting classes, but I have not, I have not just seen it with my own eyes as far as a consistent week in and week out. I know they don't play UNLV or Boise State, but they do have Texas and Colorado in the non-con. And I don't think there's a lot of slam dunk wins on the schedule outside of the FCS game against Northern Colorado. My numbers have it at 6. If you're a follower of the weekly show, we give out the under here, and I still think that price is in range at the current numbers. I like under 6.5.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you. This is one of the. It's funny because we talked about on some of our preview pods, a guy who's bringing over. They get the new coach. They bring over a lot of talent. Jay Norvell kind of tried that when he came over from Nevada and brought some guys with him, and it didn't really turn into what you would call wins. it didn't really go so well in the first year. And I know there's kind of a market expectation here that after 5-3-11, 5 that it should go up another level. I just don't know if getting to, I think 6-6 would be a good year for this Colorado State the program and where it's at, because again, Fowler Nicolosi, I thought
inconsistent.
He was okay. Yeah, inconsistent was a great word. I think 16 interceptions last year. Maybe he can cut down on the turnovers a little more. Obviously, they've got star receiver Torrey Horton. But it's a team that, they return a decent amount on defense. Wasn't a very good defense. They returned some on the O-line. Again, wasn't a great offensive line either. So, that's that type of analysis. Do you put more into the returning, thinking these guys can get better, or just the fact that they're bringing a bunch of guys back that weren't particularly good? So even if I'm giving Jay Norvell the benefit of the doubt here in the year 3 and a little bit of the bump, I agree with you that I like the under 6.5. Again, a little bit of schedule favorability too, but as you said, 2 non-con games that aren't very friendly, that there'll be, one or a 5-touchdown dog in, another one there'll be a dog in versus Colorado. And then going
at Oregon State, they'll be an underdog in that one.
Yeah, that's a tough trip. Going to Air Force is a tough trip. Playing Wyoming, that's the type of style they play at Fresno. So it's one where, they would need to win every game that they'll be expected to win, plus pull an upset here as a short dog. So yeah, I'm with you on the under 6.5.
In the weeds a little bit, but I really like their tight end. Opened up their offense last year. He's gone. And I thought, Horton's a great wide receiver, but I actually thought the best player on the team was Kamara Kid at defensive end. He's gone. One of the nation's leaders in sacks. He popped anytime you watch Colorado State, including again that Colorado game. So dynamic pass rushers don't grow on trees in the G5 level. Yeah. So I'm worried a little bit there. Again, 6-6 should be deemed a good season. 7-5, I think, is really pushing it for what this program can be in year 3. Let's talk about another one where I gave you an early bet on this program. I'm very high on this hire. Maybe not so much right now as we're recording this in early August as far as the current prices, but my goodness, early on the betting and also long-term future of this program. Love San Diego State's future with Sean Lewis. How bad was Sean Lewis? I mean, Dion fired him. He must be terrible. Guy was out of work for a week and gets a head job at San Diego State. Can you say upgrade from going from Kent State to Colorado now to the head man at San Diego State? Great for Sean Lewis. I'm happy for him. Let's see if he's got the pieces to hit the ground running here. He could. At quarterback, you got the highest rated recruit in the history of San Diego State, at least recent history. And he also gets the kid from Florida State coming in at quarterback. So there might be some pieces to work with there. I thought he was very smart in the transfer portal as far as getting some key productive guys on offense and defense. There's still some uncertainty. Am I running in the window to bet over 5.5? No, but one that I sent over to you immediately, and these are FanDuel, and kudos to FanDuel for posting these so early. One that I sent to you immediately, and I'm normally pessimistic about first-year coaches. Sent you the over on their win total. I don't think the market reacted enough for how good of a hire this is going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you have to love what Sean Lewis has done. I mean, what he did at Kent State, I don't know if it gets enough national publicity. An impossible place to win. What he took them with here. Now, if I'm going to play devil's advocate, it would be that one of our staples of the show since we started doing it is having some concerns about programs that take a dramatic shift in offensive system, like a Wisconsin going from man ball to some of what they tried under Luke Fickell in year one with some of the we're going to run more of a spread team. So to go from the Brady Hoke Stone Age offense to the Sean Lewis offense could be a bit of a transition. Now, as you said, a little easier to do in the transfer portal era where you're able to bring in some new guys, shift it around. Lewis, a smart, a brilliant offensive mind. I honestly, the biggest thing I'd worry about is Sean Lewis. I don't know how long he could be if he really hits it up with San Diego State. How long is he going to be in this job? But could be a bit of a reset on defense too. It was a team that was the San Diego State identity, which again, why Brady Hoke is not out of there. Whereas that defense was nasty for a long time, even going back before Brady Hoke. The names escape. Rocky Long. That defense was they got to get back to that. So it's also when we talk Fresno State, San Diego State's in a bad. This is a team that should acquire talent from where they're at, and was always one of the teams that had some sneaky, NFL guys, especially on defense and on offensive line. So I don't know how quickly he'll be able to turn it here, but this is what I tell you what. If I could bet 2025 futures already, I would take one to the window on Sean Lewis for next year. We'll see what he does in year one, though. As again, great hire. And excited to see what this team looks like because this was like a worse Wyoming on offense here for the last couple of years. So we'll see what they can do.
So good points by you as far as massive transition. I think in the past could take several years to transition. I mean, San Diego State wasn't option football, but it was like 1970s. 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Big Ten football felt like. With not the talent that the Michigans and the Ohio States had at that time. But portal's different. And if a guy like Clay Helton, who I don't think is as good of an offensive mind, can transition Georgia Southern from option football to a bowl game in year one at Georgia Southern, I think it's possible Sean Lewis can do it. And gives me confidence not only at Kent State, what he did. Again, like you mentioned, didn't get enough credit. You can tell when he got demoted to Colorado last year. Because the offense went from like 38 points per game to like 18 points per game. Yeah. And it was that week with Shermer calling plays. I know Dion wasn't happy with his kid getting hit, but the offensive line sucked and his kid's holding on to the football too long. That wasn't a Sean Lewis thing. Come on. There's if they can keep him for a little bit, there's some things to be optimistic. I am a little disappointed in San Diego State, though. Looks like a beautiful stadium from the outside. They didn't let me in on the inside. I was even nice in the past. They didn't let me in, so I'm a little upset with that. But a brand new stadium and obviously a recruiting hotbed there. Beautiful city. Yep. Let's talk another coach, another team with a new coach, and this is recent. It could be a program in turmoil here in Utah State, who's been up and down. If you followed along, and a guy that we won wherever he was at, Arkansas State and Utah State immediately. Anderson. Turmoil, gets fired. I think last I checked, he's going to sue the school for it. So a lot of off-field distractions for a team that I wasn't wild on to begin with. Even though they got some returning experience with 14 returning stars, although I think their top wide receiver just hit the portal. He's heading to Ole Miss, I think. The Ole Miss just collects everybody. As soon as the news broke, I didn't bet the win total yet, but that's all I needed to bet the win total. I bet under 5.5, and I know it's juiced a little bit here, but that's the only way I could go on Utah State with the turmoil.
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I'm okay. Even at the 170, I think as long as you're getting the 5.5 there, I don't think this team can win 6 games. As you mentioned, I liked Blake Anderson a lot. A phenomenal story. If you ever go back and read into what happened with his wife who passed away, and kind of him going out to Utah State and making Logan, Utah a couple years, making the run into the championship game and that. And I think he was an incredible guy. Again, some of the fall off last year mixed with what just recently happened, mixed with I don't love a lot of what this team has coming back, especially at quarterback. I know to me, if you're bringing in Spencer Petras to who was like retired at Iowa to come in and be like an answer for your, I mean, seriously, like that's like an alarm. That's like a 5-alarm fire bell for me of like, if you think that guy's going to come in and be your answer at quarterback, or you think that's concerning, mixed with the fact that they win in the they did, I think, a lot of transfer portal plus JUCOs. So I don't really know and the fact that the guy who was mixing all this together, when you're having that much turnover, then he gets fired. I don't like it. I could see this kind of being a bottom out year for Utah State. Wow. I mean, I know they have Robert Morris and Temple in between USC and Utah there, so they should get a start 2-2. But to win, I mean, then you need to win 4 games in the Mountain West. And I just don't see it. I really don't in terms of who they're going to go against. I like under 5.5 even with the juice.
Yeah, let's book it. Under 5.5 wins for Utah State. And Royals is back at wide receiver as their second leading guy. That just, I mean, literally in the last week transferred to Ole Miss. So that's a loss there at wide receiver. But under 5.5 wins for Utah State. We got an under 6.5 wins bet already for Colorado State, especially if you've been watching the weekly show. So let's see if we can find another best bet in the last 4 teams that we're talking about. And tell me if it sounds like a broken record, but another school with another new coach, San Jose State. Ken Niumatalolo comes in. Is he going to run the option? No. He's actually going to run more of a spread version. Actually going to be more 4 wide receiver sets from San Jose State. Do they have the quarterback that can throw the football? Do they have the wide receivers? I'm not sure. This is one that I also sent to you early. Unlike San Diego State, I'm not wild about this one particularly. I'm just not wild about the personnel. 6 returning starters. Anybody that was worth a damn pretty much left with Brennan to go to Arizona. Big time transition. I wasn't a huge fan of Niumatalolo at the end of Navy. Obviously they weren't. They fired him. I'm not sure this works out, at least in year one. So I'm more, even at the current number, I'm more pessimistic. And boy, that last half of the schedule, I mean, there's a possibility they're an underdog in their last 7 or 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, fascinating situation, I'll call it that, in terms of bringing in a career, military option guy to come in and change the system, along with, as you said, a lot of roster turnover, just in terms of what they brought in. This doesn't, to me, we always go back to the Texas State example from last year. It doesn't, to me, seem like the type of transition that is going to be a year one success. I think it's more of we'll call it a year 0 situation here where they try and kind of build it up and go back to, some of the old concepts. I don't know. When you lose so much and you don't have a guy who's coming in and bringing in a ton of his own, system to bring in some type of continuity, that just spells trouble for me. So I think the offense might be, I'm more optimistic on the offense than the defense, but as you said, I mean, they got it. They better beat Kennesaw State and Sacramento State, and they've got a game, at home versus Nevada, because those are the 3 likeliest wins. And that second half of the schedule, you're going to be in a lot of trouble those last 6-7 weeks. So they better rack them up early if they want any shot at going over. I'm with you. I would still lean under at the 4.5.
Yeah, San Jose State had downgraded, double digits in my power rating, so I think they take a massive step back. I thought Brennan was a really good coach there and in the weeds, but Sacramento State's not a layup in the FCS. Sacramento State's a legit team, ask Stanford. And speaking of this, I can't believe we haven't mentioned this yet. Blame me. Obviously the Mountain West has a deal with the Oregon State and Washington State, the remaining 2 members of the Pac-12. San Jose State plays both. The Oregon State and Washington State, both on the road. And then they also still play the top 2 teams in the top 3 teams. They're at Fresno, Boise State, UNLV. So, I mean, this clearly is one of the tougher schedules in the Mountain West this year. They just didn't catch a break whatsoever. And again, even though it's moved to win under 4.5, we'll see if that's an additional best bet here. We'll talk some other teams here. Let's talk Hawaii. I think we'll be a little bit more optimistic on Hawaii, although the market seems to be finally reacting to them, and to say the least. returning production, to say the least, unlike a lot of these teams we discussed in the G5 level. 17 returning starters. I like what Timmy Chang's doing. I know it hasn't necessarily turned in the win-loss column yet, but his team fights hard. In fact, a lot of times they're playing their best football at the end of the season, which I like. I think this is by far his best team that he's had. Not a lot of slam dunk wins on the schedule, but I like that the quarterback's coming back. I know they had a recent loss at wide receiver, but they returned their top 6 receivers, so I don't think it's that big of a deal there. I like this Hawaii team. They got 2 FCS teams on the schedule. I'm not sure that means that they got to win 7 games to get to a bowl game. They won't do that, but I think they can flirt with 6 wins.
Yeah, no, I'm with you here. This is I think the offense could be. I loved the hire when it happened. It hasn't turned totally into we're done, but I think this might be the year where it can kind of break right for them in terms of getting to a bowl game. The offense, as you said, ton of returning talent. I don't, this type of system, I think you can get away a little bit in terms of like offensive line turnover and just not having, it's an elite offensive line, but they got a bunch of skill talent. The defense, it hasn't rated great. I tell you, they play kind of an all or nothing style. Last year it was, the metrics are brutal. So I think almost a little nowhere to go but up in terms of the defense from where it was rated last year. But you know what? Northern Iowa, Delaware State, Sam Houston, 3 of the first 4 weeks. And that's a game where they bring in UCLA, who ton of turnover, which we've seen that steam way down there. So some friends of the show thought even a little too much. But I think it's a team that, hey, it's a little frisky. And it's one that I might have sprinkled a little bit of long prices here on the conference.
Where are we at on that one, Zach, as far as conference futures?
Down a bit too much. I want to say I played some 60 to 1. Not for
60 to 1. You don't see when I see good prices, I'm calling you. I don't get the call when I get.
Yeah, where are you at 30? I think 32 is a little thin for me. Are you?
Yeah, way too thin. In fact, I was just looking. As high as 70 to 1 was available just about a month ago. It must have been you that wiped those out.
And that again, not one that I think's gonna go to the window or one of the longer shots that I'm loving, but they do. They get Boise at home if you want to dream. And what some of the other teams coming in as well as the home schedule. So I think this team can definitely go bowling. And then maybe
remember they got to win 7 to go bowling.
Yeah. So.
All right. I don't know if we got a bet there. Are you out about over 5.5? I'm not.
I'm not crazy about. Listen. I think it gets there. I will say I liked some of the earlier prices that were.
I know people are going to get pissed at us. I
know.
Look, follow the weekly show. We were giving out enough. People were getting pissed at us. We were giving out too much. I don't know how to win with y'all. So
I know if you follow the weekly show, you also got a great number on Hawaii versus UCLA. So.
Yeah. So, that's smooth 3-4 points. We're not alone there. 2 more teams left here, and tell me if you heard this, but 2 teams that have new coaches in this league. That's why we like the Hawaiis and some of the other teams of the world in this conference, because they have continuity. These 2 teams do not have continuity. We'll start with Nevada. New coach that I like comes over from Texas. Originally was at Montana State. He was the guy that got the Montana State program running there. His name's Jeff Choate. I was been impressed with some of the interviews. Obviously, I get a little bit of Nevada coverage here, being in Nevada in the state. I hate this year's schedule, to say the least. It's one of the tougher ones in the Mountain West. Boy, the steam has come in big time against them in week 0 against SMU. Where are the wins on the schedule? Even Eastern Washington, the FCS team, is a game that's not a slam dunk win. They'll be an underdog in 12. They play 13 games. And they'll be an underdog at least in 12 of them. There's a reason why the win total is 2.5, and there's a reason why it hasn't moved off of 2.5. I know Choate thinks he expects to go to a bowl game this year. I would be stunned if they even flirted with a bowl game this year.
Yeah, as you said, like the hire. This is in the weeds, but Montana and Montana State were kind of polar opposites in the FCS for a while. He was part of the kind of the revamp of Montana State to get them back to an elite level in the FCS. But I mean, there's nothing here in terms of, quarterback room. I think is rough. They brought in Chubba Purdy from Nebraska, which almost like the Spencer Preacher. If you're bringing in Chubba Purdy from Nebraska and having that be like what you might think is your answer to the quarterback room, you're not in a good spot. Defense going to be overwhelmed talent-wise. And just, a lot of the teams we talked about either had, a lot more talent than them at the top of the conference or coaches returning that we like. This is just a complete rebuild for him. I'm a little surprised he took this job, to be honest. So this is a tough place to win, and a program that has kind of bottomed out here recently. So this is going to be I think, a multi-year turnaround for him to get them back to where he wants to be in terms of bowling or any of that. So, yeah, again, the win total so low, didn't do anything with it, but I think it should be that low for a reason.
Yeah, obviously a proud program. Chris Hall of Famer there. So there's some winning tradition, but they're off back-to-back their worst seasons in school history, and I'm not sure, again, that it gets much better this year. In the weeds, and again, we'll save for a lot of the in the weeds for the weekly show, but as far as to start the season, a couple of their best players might not be ready to start the season. A kid, particularly their projected starting running back from Boston College, might not be ready to go at the start of the season. So there's a lot of negativity. I'll give you another negativity. They didn't let me in the stadium. They did 5 years ago. They didn't last week, so that bothered me. Anytime I don't get into a G5 school, I'm just like, well, why? So that's Nevada, Reno, as we call it here in Vegas. We don't even give them the distinction of calling them Nevada. We call them Reno. New Mexico is dead last. Maybe in a lot of teams' power ratings for not only the Mountain West, but maybe nationwide. Here's another one where we love the coach. I'm sure I love this hire. I think it makes sense as far as New Mexico is concerned. Bronco Mendenhall, obviously he wanted to get back in the game. He's very familiar. Longtime defensive coordinator way back in the day under Rocky Long in the late 90s, early 2000s at New Mexico. Back in more of his region of the country where he's a longtime BYU coach. Not a lot to work with here, to say the least, particularly on offense, although I kind of like their quarterback. Now, he didn't do it. He didn't have a bunch of snaps last year, but in his action that he did play, the Dampier kid, I think, is pretty good. 7 returning starters on defense, more of Mendenhall's forte on that side of the ball. Maybe they'll be able to do something there. I probably would have been a little bit more optimistic on New Mexico, but again, we'll talk schedule. I mean, underdog in every single game, the New Mexico this year. Maybe the closest one will be at New Mexico State. And I think a lot of people were surprised because the line's up. And let's give FanDuel credit for posting this line. They're an underdog against Montana State in the opener, and a deserving underdog, if you can catch the hint there.
Yeah, I mean, as we, almost similar to Nevada, who I think has peaked a lot more recently than New Mexico. Again,
it's an 8.5.
Yeah, yeah, like the hire. This is going to be another. I mean, this might be a year -1 here in terms of what he's had to come in with. They just have nothing in terms of a roster and weren't able to really. I mean, kind of scramble and bring in a bunch of JUCOs or a bunch of transfer. I think it's when they're Broncos probably content with a little bit of a year zero here and kind of trying to build it up his way. I think he might have some success, just in that his name's known in that part of the country and, with some recruiting and being able to bring together. I just don't have, in terms of being able to players. I know Devin Dampier, I believe is his name, it was a little bit, showed some flash last year, but this is basically a middle tier FCS program in terms of talent that's having to play a Mountain West schedule. So, yeah, I know the under 2.5.
Zach, bring up the win total. I'll say the big difference. I bet over 1.5 early, but there's at the opposite ends of the spectrum that half win is significant. I'm telling you, under 2.5 would be that's be the only way I could go there. Because where's the 3 wins? I don't see the 3 wins. We got all right. We're wrapping this up. We got Colorado State under 6.5. We have Utah State under 5.5. Are we going for a third one? Are we going to do New Mexico? under 2.5? Are we gonna, are we gonna do San Jose State under 4.5? Or are we just gonna be happy with the 2? I'll let you decide.
I'm with you on the New Mexico. I agree. I think the ceiling's 2. I think you.
And that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. Again, underdog in every game.
Yep. And so to me, it's one of those where like you might be able to, I don't think they're going to win the Montana State opener. Then you got Arizona and Auburn. As you said, New Mexico State and Utah State as 2 of the most winnable. All the other games, I don't think most of those will be competitive. So yeah, I agree with you that I think 2.5 is look on the under.
Let's go under 2.5. I made it 2. And again, because there's another show that I do, I gave out over 1.5. There's a big freaking difference when you're talking about that. And even the half win, half win's typically 70 cents. When you're talking 10.5 to 11, and at the bottom end of it, 1.5 to 2, 2.5 to down to 2, it's even worth more than 70 cents. So I'm okay with the under 2.5 minus 150. That'll be the third bet. All unders. Here, Utah State with a new coach, under. Colorado State, coach that might be on the hot seat when it's all said and done, too much expectations, under 6.5 there. New Mexico, even though we like Mendenhall, under 2.5 wins. There's 3 best bets. No conference futures, right? Hawaii's priced out.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a little too short of the number on the future.
And if you watch the weekly show, part of the Hammer Betting Network, now sponsored by FanDuel, hit the books Mondays, Fridays, and a special thing that we're going to do game days, believe it or not, this upcoming season. You'd have gotten Boise with a plus number we talked about several months ago. So that'll do it for the Mountain West preview. For the man, the myth, the legend himself, Joey Knish, I'm Brad Powers. For Zach Phillips, that'll do it. You just watched Hit the Books, part of the Hammer Betting Network.